2:16 a.m., Atlanta. Rain hammered the glass walls of the Bennett estate. The infinity pool glowed an eerie blue, ripples distorting the lifeless figure beneath the surface. Have you ever wondered what happens when the person you trust to protect your future is the one planning your end? What makes someone welcome a stranger into their life when they've spent decades building walls around their legacy? If you haven't joined the Guilty Whispers community yet, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to become part of our growing family of true crime enthusiasts. Share your location in the comments below. We love seeing how our stories connect people across the world. Claire Bennett was born in rural Georgia in 1954 to a single mother who worked as a cook in wealthy white households. From an early age, Claire learned the art of Southern cooking at her mother's side, watching her transform humble ingredients into dishes that carried history and tradition. But Claire wasn't content to simply replicate. Even as a child, she experimented, adding her own touches to traditional recipes, developing innovative takes on the foods that had sustained generations. "My mama taught me that cooking isn't just following directions," Claire once said in a rare personal interview. "It's about understanding why each ingredient matters, what it brings to the story you're telling on that plate." When Claire turned 19, she packed her mother's handwritten recipe cards and a single suitcase, boarding a Greyhound bus bound for New Orleans. She arrived with $47 to her name, determination in her heart, and flavors in her mind that the world wasn't yet ready to taste. Her first job was washing dishes at Laveau's, a French Quarter restaurant where the kitchen staff laughed when she asked about cooking opportunities. But Claire wasn't deterred. She arrived early, stayed late, and absorbed everything around her. Within 6 months, when a line cook called in sick, Claire stepped in without being asked. The head chef was initially furious, until he tasted her work. She rose quickly after that, from line cook to sous chef at increasingly prestigious establishments. But Claire faced constant obstacles. Racism and sexism were rampant in professional kitchens in the 1970s. Male chefs stole her ideas. Owners paid her less than her white counterparts. Yet she persisted, saving every penny, developing recipes at night in her small apartment kitchen. In 1979, she took the biggest risk of her life, opening Southern Revival in a small storefront in New Orleans' Bywater neighborhood. The concept was revolutionary at the time, traditional Southern dishes elevated with classical French techniques and global influences. Critics were initially skeptical, but the food spoke for itself. "I remember those early days," said Marcus Wilson, her longtime business manager before being dismissed in 2023. "Claire would be there at 4 in the morning prepping, serve lunch and dinner, then stay past midnight planning the next day. She'd sleep on a cot in her office when she couldn't afford the gas to drive home." The breakthrough came in 1984 when New York Times food critic William Grimes visited New Orleans and discovered Southern Revival. His review called Claire a cultural insurgent armed with a cast-iron skillet and classical training, declaring her gumbo a revelation that forces us to reconsider what Southern food can be. Overnight, the restaurant was booked months in advance. With success came expansion. Claire opened her flagship restaurant, Claire's Table, in Atlanta in 1986, followed by her first cookbook in 1989. The book's success led to television appearances, product lines, and more restaurants. By the year 2000, Claire Bennett Enterprises was valued at $75 million. Her personal life during this ascent was less public. She married music producer Calvin Turner in 1988, a business-focused partnership that ended amicably in 1998. The divorce was quiet, with no children involved. Claire devoted herself entirely to building her empire. But behind her success lay a deeply private woman who had learned early to protect herself. In 1991, a trusted business partner stole several of her signature recipes, attempting to open a competing restaurant. Claire not only sued successfully but developed a fierce protective instinct around her work and personal life. She became known for firing staff who shared even innocuous details about her routines or home life with outsiders. The scent of her custom-blended vanilla and bourbon perfume would alert staff to her presence before she entered a room. It became an olfactory warning system: straighten up, focus, excellence only. Claire demanded perfection because she'd fought too hard to accept anything less. Despite her business success, Claire felt something was missing. At 51, in 2005, she made another life-changing decision, having a daughter via surrogate. Stella Bennett was born on April 12, 2005, with no father listed on the birth certificate. Claire raised her as a single mother, fiercely protective of her privacy and determined to give her every advantage. Claire changed when Stella was born, said Josephine Harris, one of her oldest friends. She'd always been driven, but suddenly there was softness to her. Everything became about creating a legacy that would outlive her, something meaningful to leave her daughter. Stella grew up in Claire's elite Atlanta world, attending the exclusive Westfield Academy, accompanying her mother to restaurant kitchens from the time she could walk. Like her mother, Stella showed natural culinary talent, but with her own distinctive style. While Claire was a traditionalist at heart, Stella gravitated toward fusion cuisine, blending her mother's Southern techniques with Japanese, Korean, and Mexican influences. This difference in approach created subtle tension between mother and daughter. Claire wanted Stella to master the classics before experimenting. Stella wanted to forge her own path immediately. Claire's protective nature, born from her own difficult rise, often clashed with Stella's desire for independence. By 18, Stella had developed a secret Instagram account under the pseudonym TrueFlavorATL, where she shared food creations without her mother's knowledge or approval. In her bedroom, she kept a collection of international cooking school brochures hidden beneath her mattress, representing escape fantasies from the path her mother had prescribed. Though she'd been accepted to the prestigious Culinary Institute of America for the fall of 2023, Stella dreamed of studying in Tokyo or Barcelona instead. Despite their differences, the bond between mother and daughter was strong. Stella even wore her mother's signature spice blends as perfume, a subtle act that was both homage and rebellion, carrying her mother's legacy while seeking her own identity. This was the Bennett family dynamic in January 2023 when Fred Lewis entered their world. Fred Lewis was born in 1984 in Charlotte, North Carolina, to working-class parents. His father repaired office equipment, his mother worked as a hospital receptionist. From an early age, Fred displayed a charismatic personality and talent for reading people. Teachers noted his ability to adapt his behavior depending on who he was trying to impress. After high school, Fred enrolled at North Carolina State University but dropped out after 3 semesters. He attempted community college twice more between 2003 and 2009, but never completed a degree. Instead, he found work at local gyms, developing a passion for fitness and nutrition that seemed genuine at first. By 2016, Fred had built a modest social media following, posting fitness advice and wellness tips. He leveraged this into launching Elevated Life, a brand that promised transformation through what he called holistic wellness architecture. His posts featured aspirational imagery, Fred in luxury settings, designer clothes, and exotic locations. The reality, however, was that most were carefully staged. The cars were rented, the luxury hotel lobbies were places he briefly visited rather than stayed in, and the designer clothes were often returned after being photographed. His self-published book, From Struggle to Strength, featured generic advice packaged in motivational language: "Your mindset is the architecture of your future," and "Wealth isn't built with money, but with vision." Though light on substance, the book established Fred as a thought leader in certain circles. What wasn't apparent from his curated online presence was Fred's pattern of targeting wealthy older women. In 2018, he began dating Marilyn Winters, a 58-year-old Miami hotel heiress who financed his first supplement line. The relationship ended when her family became suspicious of his motives. In 2020, he was briefly engaged to Sandra Phillips, a 62-year-old tech executive who bought him a luxury car before her son intervened. Most concerning was his short-lived 2021 marriage to Eleanor Thompson, 55, widow of a banking executive, who filed a restraining order after the relationship ended. Behind his wellness guru facade, Fred was $340,000 in debt from failed business ventures and lavish spending to maintain appearances. He developed a precise methodology for insinuating himself into wealthy women's lives. Researching them extensively before coincidental meetings, memorizing their interests and vulnerabilities, and adapting his persona to match their needs. Even his cologne changed based on his target demographic: subtle, expensive scents for older clients, stronger, more youthful fragrances for social media appearances. Everything about Fred Lewis was calculated, including his arrival at the Southern Food Heritage Gala in Atlanta on January 15, 2023. The gala, held at the Peachtree Legacy Pavilion, was one of the most prestigious food events in the South. Fred had been invited as a last-minute replacement speaker when the scheduled wellness expert canceled due to illness. His presentation on the wellness revolution in Southern cuisine impressed attendees with its blend of traditional food appreciation and modern health consciousness. Claire Bennett sat in the front row, initially skeptical but gradually nodding as Fred spoke about preserving culinary heritage while adapting techniques for contemporary health needs. His final line resonated with her: "Legacy isn't just what we leave behind, it's how we ensure what matters most survives in a changing world." After his presentation, Claire approached Fred, introducing herself, though he certainly knew exactly who she was. Their handshake lasted a beat too long, Fred maintaining eye contact with practiced intensity. They spoke about the challenges of bridging tradition and innovation, a conversation that struck at the core of Claire's current business challenges. "I'd love to hear more about your approach to wellness integration," Claire said. "My team has been developing a product line that could benefit from your perspective." What might have remained a casual professional connection shifted when Claire invited Fred to consult on her new wellness-focused cookbook and product line. It was uncharacteristic of her to bring an outsider into her business so quickly, but Fred had done his research. He knew exactly which buttons to push. Throughout February and March of 2023, Fred began consulting for Claire Bennett Enterprises. His initial focus was strictly professional. He delivered thoughtful presentations, insightful market analyses, and seemed genuinely interested in preserving the integrity of Claire's brand while expanding its reach. During this time, Fred studied Claire carefully, her business operations, financial structures, decision-making patterns, and personal habits. He noted how she took her tea, ginger with honey, never sugar, her morning routine, up at 5:30 for yoga, followed by recipe testing. And most importantly, the dynamics of her close relationships. Marcus Wilson, Claire's business manager of 20 years, noticed Fred's growing influence first. He started small, suggesting minor changes to meeting structures, weighing in on decisions outside his expertise. But he was smart about it. He'd frame everything as supporting Claire's vision, even when redirecting it. On March 12, Claire invited Fred to dinner at her home, the first time he'd been included in her private space. As she poured wine that evening, Fred noticed her hands trembling slightly, revealing a nervousness the public never saw in the formidable Claire Bennett. It was a vulnerability he filed away for later use. During this dinner, Fred accidentally mentioned a childhood memory of cooking with his grandmother that paralleled one Claire had shared in a rare personal interview years earlier, creating an artificial sense of connection and shared experience. The similarity wasn't coincidental. It was meticulously researched and deployed at precisely the right moment. Claire began to let her guard down, sharing stories about her struggles in the industry, her concerns about Stella's future, her fears about maintaining relevance in a changing culinary landscape. Fred listened attentively, mentally cataloging each insecurity for future leverage. By late March, Fred had gained enough influence that when Marcus Wilson raised concerns about Fred's growing role in the company, Claire not only dismissed his worries but fired him on March 29, ending a 20-year professional relationship based largely on Fred's subtle suggestions that Marcus was resistant to necessary evolution. What Claire couldn't see was that while building her trust, Fred was keeping detailed notes on his phone, later recovered by investigators. Insecurities. Aging, legacy, daughter's independence, and pressure points, fears irrelevance, worries about Stella's readiness. The next phase of Fred's plan began on April 7, 2023, when he was finally introduced to Stella Bennett at a Sunday family dinner at Claire's estate. Stella, then 17, was initially reserved, watching this newcomer in her mother's life with justified skepticism. Fred approached Stella differently than Claire. Rather than presenting as a respectful advisor, he positioned himself as an admiring peer. He showed genuine interest in Stella's fusion cuisine experiments, asking thoughtful questions about her Korean Southern barbecue techniques and Mexican-inspired seafood dishes. "Your approach is so fresh," he told her, examining her plating. "You've already moved beyond your mother's foundation to something entirely new." This validation, something Stella rarely received from Claire, who emphasized mastering basics before innovating, created an immediate opening. The very next day, April 8, at 11:42 p.m., Fred sent Stella his first text message: "Your mother doesn't understand digital presence. I can help you build your own brand." Over the following weeks, Fred carefully cultivated his relationship with Stella, offering to help her develop a social media strategy for her cooking, suggesting specific career opportunities Claire hadn't considered, and positioning himself as someone who truly saw her talent in a way her mother couldn't. A key text exchange on April 23 revealed the direction of his manipulation. "Fred, 9:17 p.m., your mother shouldn't limit your talent. You deserve your own platform." Stella, 9:20 p.m., she'd never allow it. "She thinks I need more foundation before going public." Fred, 9:22 p.m., what if you didn't need her permission someday? The implication was subtle but clear. Later that month, on April 30, Fred's internet search history would show queries for "Age of Consent Georgia," a chilling indicator of his intentions as Stella approached her 18th birthday. His grooming technique included physical boundary testing disguised as culinary instruction, standing unnecessarily close while demonstrating knife techniques, touching her hands to correct grip positions, creating situations where inappropriate contact could be framed as professional guidance. All this occurred while maintaining his professional relationship with Claire, who remained unaware of the growing connection between Fred and her daughter. Fred was carefully constructing parallel relationships with mother and daughter, creating an information silo that prevented either from fully understanding his interactions with the other. The situation escalated on May 18, 2023, when Claire invited Fred to join her on a private yacht excursion to St. Lucia, ostensibly to discuss business expansion plans away from office distractions. This trip marked a significant shift in their relationship from professional to personal. While cruising off the coast of St. Lucia, a photographer from another vessel captured images of Claire and Fred in an intimate conversation on deck. Claire was smiling in a way few had seen in recent years, looking relaxed and engaged as Fred leaned close to speak to her. The photos quickly circulated online, sparking speculation about their relationship. Unusually, Claire issued no denial or clarification about the nature of their connection, something out of character for a woman who had zealously guarded her private life for decades. Instead, the silence created space for rumors to flourish. Fred carefully managed the situation without explicitly confirming or denying a romantic relationship. On May 20, he posted a photo of himself on the yacht with the caption, "When alignment happens, doors open money can't buy," with a St. Lucia geotag. The post was deliberately ambiguous but suggested intimacy and access. That same night, at 1:14 a.m., while still on the yacht with Claire, Fred texted Stella, "Your mother doesn't know I'm texting you from her yacht. This is temporary. Trust me." During this same trip, yacht Wi-Fi logs would later show Fred researching Claire's net worth and business holdings. When they returned to Atlanta, Claire began appearing with Fred at public events. She even changed her signature perfume to one he had selected, a small but significant symbol of his growing influence over her personal choices. Meanwhile, her longtime friends found themselves increasingly excluded from her life. As summer progressed, Fred's strategy shifted into higher gear. By June 15, he had convinced Claire to dismiss her longtime attorney, replacing him with someone from Fred's network. He began inserting himself into financial discussions, gaining visibility into Claire's complex asset portfolio. On July 3, Claire began updating her will, ostensibly to better protect Stella's future. Fred's influence was evident in these changes, particularly a provision that would later prove critical: my daughter may appoint financial advisors of her choosing to manage her inheritance. This seemingly innocuous clause would have allowed Fred to control the entire estate through his influence over Stella, had his plan succeeded. Throughout this period, Fred continued deepening his inappropriate relationship with Stella while driving a wedge between mother and daughter. A text exchange from July 12 revealed his manipulation technique. Fred, 11:52 p.m. Your mother will never let you develop your own style. She sees you as her copy. Stella, 11:55 p.m. She shot down my pop-up restaurant idea again today. Fred, 11:57 p.m. If she wasn't controlling everything, you could be bigger than her. Your vision is better. Stella, 12:03 a.m. Sometimes I wish I could just make my own decisions. Fred, 12:05 a.m. Someday you will. We will. On August 3, Fred gave Stella a burner phone for private career discussions, away from Claire's monitoring. When texting Fred, Stella's hands would shake. A physical manifestation of the conflicting emotions of excitement and fear his attention created. By mid-August, Fred had begun planting more explicit seeds about Claire's eventual absence. On August 22, he texted Stella, "After your mother is gone, everything changes. The company, your freedom, us. But we need patience." The manipulation culminated in a secret meeting on August 30 where Fred crossed physical boundaries with Stella, now 18. Her diary entry, later discovered by investigators, read, "F kissed me today. Said it's wrong but he can't help it. Says mom would never understand. I feel sick but excited." The next day, Fred made his first explicit suggestion about Claire's death: "Your mother controls everything now, but that won't be forever. What happens when the trusted advisor becomes the greatest threat?" Drop a comment below with your thoughts on relationship red flags you've noticed in your own life. Your perspective matters in our community of true crime enthusiasts. On September 10, 2023, Claire Bennett announced her engagement to Fred Lewis at her annual charity gala. The announcement sent shockwaves through Atlanta's culinary and social circles. Not only had the relationship been public for barely 4 months, but the 31-year age gap between 70-year-old Claire and 39-year-old Fred sparked immediate speculation about his motives. Media outlets questioned whether a prenuptial agreement would be in place, given Claire's estimated $120 million fortune. Financial analysts openly discussed the implications for Claire Bennett Enterprises, which had remained under her tight control for decades. In a rare interview with Atlanta Lifestyle magazine, Claire showed uncharacteristic openness about the relationship. "Fred sees me, not just my accomplishments or my brand," she said. "He understands legacy." For those who knew Claire well, this public vulnerability was jarring. She had always maintained rigid boundaries between her personal and public lives. The wedding was scheduled for March 17, 2024, an accelerated timeline that raised additional eyebrows. While Claire threw herself into wedding preparations with unexpected enthusiasm, Stella withdrew, her conflicted emotions visible to those paying attention. 5 days after the engagement announcement, at 1:17 a.m., Fred texted Stella, "It's happening faster than I expected. Stay calm. Everything we've talked about is still the plan. Patience." Stella replied, "I don't know if I can watch this." Fred's response was chilling in retrospect: "You won't have to for long. Trust me." As wedding planning progressed, Claire's longtime friends found themselves increasingly excluded from the process. The guest list, once expected to include hundreds from Claire's extensive professional network, was trimmed to just 40 attendees, notably missing many who had been part of her life for decades. In January 2024, Claire made significant changes to her financial structures, consolidating assets and updating her will. On January 12, she finalized a revision making Stella her sole heir, with the critical provision that my daughter may appoint financial advisors of her choosing to manage her inheritance. What Claire couldn't have known was that Fred was photographing these documents when she stepped away from her home office, studying the legal language and planning how to exploit it. As the wedding approached, Fred's communications with Stella became increasingly explicit about their future plans. On February 28, at 11:42 p.m., he texted, "After the wedding, things will change. The financial structure is almost ready. Trust me." When Stella asked what exactly he was planning, Fred replied, "Less you know now, safer for you. Just be ready to move quickly when I tell you." The day after this exchange, on March 1, Claire discovered a suspicious text on Fred's phone. Though she accepted his explanation, it planted a seed of doubt that would grow in the coming weeks. Still, wedding preparations continued, with Claire insisting that her signature spice blend be incorporated into every dish, a symbolic attempt to maintain control even as it slipped away. On March 17, 2024, Claire and Fred were married in an intimate ceremony at the Bennett estate in Atlanta. Claire wore an elegant cream suit, Fred a tailored gray, and Stella stood as maid of honor in a matching cream dress that made her look unervingly like a younger version of her mother. The scent of white lilies overwhelmed the wedding tent, a fragrance that would later remind guests of funeral arrangements. Claire appeared unusually subdued throughout the ceremony and left the reception early at 9:30 p.m., claiming fatigue. What guests didn't know was that security cameras had captured Fred and Stella in a private 3-minute conversation in the garden during the reception. Guest Michelle Taylor overheard part of this exchange, later telling investigators she heard Fred say, "Just a little longer now. 2 weeks at most." No honeymoon was announced immediately after the wedding. Instead, on March 20, Claire made a surprising announcement that she would take a business sabbatical. Transferring day-to-day operations of Claire Bennett Enterprises to her executive team for the first time in her career. During this period, Fred became increasingly involved in financial discussions with Claire's accountants, while Stella withdrew from public view, declining interview requests and social engagements related to the wedding. On March 22, 5 days after the wedding, Fred and Stella exchanged texts that would later become key evidence. Fred: "Once she's gone, everything changes. Us. The business. Everything. Stella, I'm scared. What if something goes wrong?" Fred: "Nothing will go wrong. It will look like an accident. The pool is perfect." Stella: "I don't think I can be there." Fred: "You don't need to be. Just be ready for after." 2 weeks later, on April 4, 2024, Claire and Fred arrived at Diamond Palms Resort on the Georgia coast for their delayed honeymoon. They checked into Villa 8, an exclusive beachfront property with a private infinity pool overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. Resort staff later noted Claire's specific requests: ginger tea served each evening at 8:15 p.m. and fresh flowers delivered daily. Unusually, the booking had been made under Fred's name rather than Claire's, a departure from her typical pattern of maintaining control over all arrangements. Throughout their stay, Fred handled all communications with the outside world, while Claire kept her phone mostly powered off. Staff observed her taking solitary morning walks along the beach between 6:30 and 7:15 a.m., appearing contemplative but not unhappy. What staff also noticed, but didn't find significant until later, was that Claire never entered the pool or ocean during their stay. This aligned with her long-standing fear of water after a hip injury years earlier that had left her wary of slippery surfaces. Meanwhile, Fred's internet search history from April 5 revealed ominous queries: inheritance challenges second marriage, how long for drowning to be fatal, and security camera blind spots pools. On April 7, Fred approached maintenance worker James Collins, offering him $700 cash to disable the pool area security camera for what he claimed was a romantic surprise for Claire's birthday, which staff later confirmed was actually in September, not April. Maintenance logs would show the camera was scheduled to be disabled between 11:30 p.m. on April 10 and 2:30 a.m. on April 11. Phone records revealed multiple calls between Fred and Stella on April 9, 3:14 p.m., call lasting 12 minutes 7:22 p.m., call lasting 8 minutes 11:47 p.m., call lasting 4 minutes on April 10, at 3:20 p.m., Claire called her attorney Patricia Walsh. Walsh would later testify that Claire wanted to discuss urgent changes to her prenuptial agreement, scheduling a follow-up meeting for the next day, a meeting Claire would never attend. That evening, Claire made her final journal entry at 7:30 p.m., "Something isn't right. Fred's late-night calls with S, need to speak with Patricia again tomorrow." The prenuptial clause about the entry ended abruptly, as if she had been interrupted. At 9:15 p.m., Claire had her usual evening tea, which investigators would later determine contained a sedative. Security footage from that night showed Stella entering the resort through a service entrance at 12:45 a.m. on April 11, wearing a baseball cap pulled low over her face. The pool area camera went dark at 1:30 a.m. as scheduled. At 1:33 a.m., Fred texted Stella, "It's done. Delete this message." At 2:16 a.m., Fred called 911, his voice frantic, "My wife isn't breathing. She fell in the pool. Please hurry." When paramedics arrived, they found Claire Bennett's body beside the pool, not in it. Fred claimed he had pulled her out while attempting resuscitation. The medical examiner noted unusual bruising on Claire's upper arms but initially attributed them to rescue attempts. Within 48 hours, her death was classified as an accidental drowning, and the case was closed. 2 days after Claire's death, on April 13, Fred texted Stella, "We need to wait 2 weeks minimum. No contact until then. Delete all messages." Stella replied, "I can't sleep. I keep seeing her face." Fred's response was cold, "Pull yourself together. Everything we planned is happening." Claire's funeral was held on April 15, the service filled with the same overwhelming scent of white lilies that had decorated her wedding less than a month earlier. Stella appeared withdrawn and pale, avoiding eye contact with guests. Josephine Harris, Claire's longtime friend, noticed something disturbing. Stella was wearing her mother's distinctive gold bracelet, a piece Claire had never allowed anyone else to touch. Though Fred and Stella avoided each other publicly at the memorial service, their separation would be short-lived. On April 18, an anonymous bank employee contacted police about suspicious financial transfers. $3.2 million moved to offshore accounts in the weeks before Claire's death. 2 days later, on April 20, staff at the Westwood Hotel in downtown Atlanta reported seeing Stella and Fred checking in together. A witness recognized Claire's distinctive white Range Rover in the parking lot, driven now by Stella. Hotel records would show the room booked under Frederick and Stella Lewis. These developments prompted police to reopen the investigation. They obtained warrants for Fred and Stella's phone records, uncovering the extensive text messages detailing their relationship and plans. Resort maintenance worker James Collins came forward about the security camera tampering, admitting Fred had paid him to disable it. A second autopsy revealed evidence inconsistent with accidental drowning. Bruising patterns on Claire's arms matched hand restraint rather than rescue attempts. The water in her lungs was insufficient for normal drowning, and toxicology tests showed lorazepam in her system, a sedative not prescribed to her but found in trace amounts in her evening tea cup. On April 23, Fred attempted to flee the country but was apprehended at Atlanta International Airport. Airline records showed he had purchased a one-way ticket to Belize with cash. The following day, during police questioning, Stella broke down and revealed her partial knowledge of the murder plan. As the investigation deepened, police uncovered the full extent of Fred and Stella's conspiracy through their phone records. 847 messages exchanged between March and April 2024. Digital forensics recovered deleted texts discussing specific murder details. April 3, Fred to Stella, the sedative arrives tomorrow. Just 2 drops in her tea. She won't feel anything. April 4, Stella to Fred, what if someone recognizes me at the resort? Fred, service and trance at midnight. Baseball cap, hoodie. Security guard is paid off. Financial investigators discovered Fred had transferred $4.8 million to shell companies with himself as hidden beneficiary. $1.2 million to a Cayman Islands account established March 24. $2.3 million to a Singapore investment firm with false corporate documentation. $1.3 million to cryptocurrency wallets designed to be untraceable. Claire's journal, recovered from her belongings, revealed her growing suspicions in the days before her death. April 5, Fred on phone at 2 a.m. again. Says it's business in Europe. Not convinced. April 7, asked to see prenup again. Fred deflected. Something feels wrong. April 9, found messages between F and S on his tablet. My God. What have they been planning? Crime scene re-examination found evidence initially overlooked, a broken fingernail matching Claire's DNA embedded in the wooden deck, a partial shoe print not matching Claire's or Fred's shoes, and Claire's prescription reading glasses in bushes 15 feet from the pool, suggesting a struggle rather than an accident. Court-appointed psychologist Dr. Eliza Washington evaluated Stella's mental state, diagnosing her as a victim of exploitative intimacy and emotional dependency. In her expert testimony, Dr. Washington explained, Fred Lewis employed classic trauma bonding techniques typically seen in cult leaders. He systematically replaced Stella's support system with dependency on his approval. The psychological analysis revealed Fred's methodical approach to manipulation. First phase. Building trust with Claire, January-April 2023. Second phase. Creating parallel relationship with Stella, April-August 2023. Third phase. Triangulation and division, August-December 2023. Final phase. Extraction and elimination, January-April 2024. During police interviews, Stella showed physical flinching reactions whenever Fred's name was mentioned, a trauma response confirming the psychological hold he had established. Investigators also uncovered Fred's previous pattern of targeting wealthy women, including his 2018 relationship with Miami hotel heiress Marilyn Winters, who financed his supplement line, his 2020 engagement to tech executive Sandra Phillips, who bought him a luxury car, and his brief 2021 marriage to banking widow Eleanor Thompson, who had filed a restraining order against him. Psychological profiling revealed Fred displayed narcissistic personality disorder with sociopathic traits. As the court-appointed psychologist noted, he demonstrates complete lack of empathy while maintaining a charming facade. He uses calculated warmth as a tool rather than genuine emotional connection. Fred was arrested on April 24 on charges of first-degree murder, conspiracy, and fraud. Stella was arrested the following day as an accessory, though her charges were reduced due to evidence of psychological manipulation. The grand jury indictment detailed a premeditated murder plot with 42 counts total, including murder with special circumstances, financial fraud totaling $4.8 million, evidence tampering, witness manipulation, and money laundering across international boundaries. Fred was denied bail as a flight risk with access to hidden accounts. Stella was released to a psychiatric facility on $1 million bond with electronic monitoring. As the case moved toward trial, Fred's defense team attempted to portray Stella as the mastermind, claiming she was a troubled young woman who wanted freedom from her controlling mother. They pointed to text messages showing Stella's frustration with Claire's control and suggested Fred was caught between two strong-willed Bennett women. Stella's defense focused on the psychological manipulation and grooming she had experienced, bringing in experts to explain how Fred had systematically isolated her from support systems and exploited her vulnerabilities. The high-profile trial began on August 15, 2024, drawing national media attention. Claire's longtime friends testified about personality changes they observed after Fred entered her life. She stopped calling. Cancelled our monthly lunches. That wasn't Claire, said one friend. She never let anyone tell her what to do, until him. Resort staff testified about Claire's behavior during her final days. Mrs. Bennet never went near the pool all week. She said she was afraid of falling, and Mr. Lewis asked very specific questions about security camera schedules. Financial experts detailed the complex money movement schemes, noting, this level of financial obfuscation requires significant premeditation. The layering of transactions shows professional-level financial crime. Throughout the proceedings, Fred maintained his innocence, never showing emotion even when confronted with the most damning evidence. In contrast, Stella's emotional testimony revealed the extent of Fred's manipulation. He told me I would never be free while she controlled everything, she testified through tears. He said we could build something together once she was gone. I didn't want her dead. I just wanted what he promised me. After 7 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with their verdict. Fred Lewis was guilty on all counts. Stella had already pleaded guilty to reduced charges of accessory after the fact. At sentencing, Judge Mary Ann Tompkins delivered a scathing condemnation of Fred's actions. You preyed not just on one woman, but systematically destroyed a family. Your calculated manipulation of a vulnerable young woman shows profound moral corruption. Fred received life imprisonment without parole plus 30 years for financial crimes. Stella was sentenced to 8 years with possibility of parole after 3, with requirements for ongoing psychological treatment. The case became a national sensation, with trending hashtags #JusticeForClaire and #FreeStellaB dividing public opinion on Stella's culpability versus victimhood. Some saw her as equally guilty, others viewed her as another of Fred's victims. Claire's business empire continued under trust management, with a legacy foundation established to support young female chefs from underprivileged backgrounds, ensuring that despite the tragedy, Claire Bennett's vision would continue to nourish future generations. Have you ever encountered someone who isolated you from others in your life? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might help someone else recognize the warning signs of manipulation. Former friends and colleagues expressed guilt over not recognizing the warning signs sooner. There were red flags we all missed, said Josephine Harris. The way he gradually took over decisions, how Claire stopped returning calls, the changes in her personality. We saw the pieces but didn't put them together until it was too late. Claire Bennett Enterprises experienced an initial stock drop following the scandal but stabilized within months. The public's fascination with the psychological aspects of the case, particularly the manipulation tactics Fred employed, spawned multiple documentary projects and psychological studies on predatory relationships. The story of Claire Bennett isn't just about how a brilliant life ended in tragedy. It's about the spaces we leave unguarded, the vulnerabilities we don't acknowledge, and the warnings we choose to ignore. Claire built an empire through discipline, talent, and control. She protected her brand, her recipes, and her public image with meticulous precision. But in her final chapter, she left open the one door that should have remained most secure: trust. In her desire for companionship after decades of independence, she welcomed someone who saw not her heart, but her assets, not her wisdom, but her weakness. Fred Lewis didn't need to break into Claire's world. She invited him in, handed him the keys, and showed him exactly what mattered most. And in that space between loneliness and legacy, he found the perfect leverage: a daughter seeking validation beyond her mother's shadow. For Stella, now serving her sentence while undergoing intensive therapy, the journey forward will be about reconciling the person she thought she was with the choices she made. Can she rebuild a life worthy of the legacy her mother created? Can she find her own voice after it was so deliberately silenced by manipulation? The tragedy of the Bennett family reminds us that sometimes the most dangerous predators don't force their way in through locked doors. They're welcomed through the front door, handed a drink, and given a seat at the table. They don't take what isn't offered. They simply accept what we're too willing to give. If you haven't joined the Guilty Whispers community yet, hit that subscribe button and become part of our growing family. Leave a comment below. Would you have seen the warning signs Claire missed? Sometimes the person who promises to protect your future is already planning its end.